This lens was made in August of 1984 and it's mine for just $23 US. And it is brilliant in every way possible because this is the Canon FD 70-210 f4. The Canon FD 70-210 f4 is one of the best telephoto zoom lenses using the Canon FD mounts, and that's because it's well built, sharp, and more importantly versatile. The FD 70-210 was manufactured starting with 1980. My lens and the lens used in this review was made in August of 1984, and as usual, it has seen its fair share of bumps and usage. However, it has maintained its original performance. More on that later. This lens is a fully manual full-frame lens and uses a push-style zoom mechanism and has a constant aperture across the zoom range. What this means is that even if you zoom in or out to your subject, the set aperture remains unchanged, a big deal if you want to maintain a particular look to your photos and videos. I got this lens as always via the local eBay, and it wasn't that expensive either. For just $23 plus shipping at a total of $25, this lens is and was a bargain. Not only is this lens a push zoom lens, but it has an integrated macro function that adds even more to its overall practicality. The build quality on the Canon FD 70-210 f4 is fantastic, even though it's made mostly from plastic on the outside and metal on the inside. The whole lens feels great and has some weight to it, but it's not too much to make it unusable for street or handheld photography. The total weight of this lens is 645 grams, so not exactly the heaviest of the bunch, but not lightweight either. The focus operating is smooth, and I can say the same for the zoom push-pull system, both operating just as good as when they were new, even though this lens is over 38 years old. The lens has an aperture range starting at f4 and going all the way to f32. It also has a minimum focus distance of around 1.2 meters in its standard layout and around 45 centimeters in macro mode, with a focus travel of 180 degrees for pinpoint accuracy. Going back to the zoom system of this lens, as the name suggests, you push to zoom out and pull to zoom in. This system is very good especially for video because you can push or pull to zoom in and out while also rotating the same ring to maintain your focus. This is a big deal for video footage as it makes your job easy. A regular lens has two rings, one for focus and one for zoom, and using both at the same time will be tricky to say the least. Not with the FD 70-210 though. This one has the same large ring for both systems and it works beautifully. When it comes to the way this lens looks, it looks great and not old at all. The markings and the graphics on this lens are of high quality given that they lasted for over 38 years at this point. All of them have vivid colors and all of them are sharp and even in their shape. Of course, like all vintage lenses, this Canon does not have any type of image stabilization system. This means that you can either rely on a tripod, gimbal, or if your camera has an inbuilt sensor stabilization. In addition, unless you use an older camera, as in a camera that has the Canon FD lens mount, you will have to use an adapter for it, and based on what camera you use, that adapter will be different. Some adapters have lenses inside of them to compensate for any issues present by the camera and the lens, while others are empty and just a big piece of metal. However, this lens is big, it's not a 50mm one, so you need some time to get used to its size, to the way it works, and more importantly, the way you focus through the viewfinder to get that perfect focus at maximum zoom. And everything goes back to the size and weight. At first, it can be intimidating because it is a big lens, and modern cameras, well, unless we are talking about the big boys full frame models, well, most cameras are small and lightweight. This lens is sharp at f4, which is the minimum aperture available, but if you stop down a bit, the sharpness increases, especially around the corners and at long distances. This is to be expected as that's the behavior of most lenses, with a few exceptions that might be part of a different review. The Canon FD 70-210 f4 is sharp even at f4, but I'd say that I mostly use this lens at either f5.6 or f8 for most of my photos. And I can speak all I want about sharpness or long range, but I can just show them to you like this. At the start of this review, I mentioned a macro mode, and you are inclined to say, does that thing even work or it's just a useless gimmick? Well, it works brilliantly. The way you use this macro mode is simple. You zoom out completely and then move the zoom dash focus ring towards the right to engage macro mode. And that's it. This makes this lens versatile because in general terms you have multiple lenses into one. You get a 210 zoom lens, a macro lens and something in between depending on the focal range you use. However, just like many other vintage lenses, there are issues. Not because this Canon was not well built, but because, well, it is 38 years old. First, half of the filter thread at the front of the lens is completely missing. How did this happen? Who knows? My theory is that this lens had a large hood installed, and with that hood there, well, the owner at the time bumped it into something, and hence why only half the thread is missing. Fortunately, with half the thread still in place, I can install other hoods or lens filters, but I need to be careful not to bump into them as they are easy to fall. The second issue of this lens is at the back, because it has some fungus inside, right on the edge towards the left side of the mount. This does not affect the image quality at all thanks to its position, but it would have been great if I'd be able to remove it. However, this being an on lens, some screws are locked in place and I might have to drill them out. So I still have some issues with cleaning that fungus spot, but I will get it done, eventually, at some point. The Canon FD 70-10 f4 is an interesting lens. It's functional, it delivers a great image, and honestly, it has a charm of its own. Of course, it's nowhere near as charismatic as a Russian lens, but it's so well put together that it does have a unique feel. Is this lens worth it though? Absolutely. The build quality is great, the photo quality alone makes it worth it, and with an aperture of f4 it's not that slow either. However, as with many things in life, it comes down to what you want from a lens, and this one is no different. If you like this review, then you might consider subscribing for more, and if you want to support me directly, then in the description below you will find the links for the Patreon and the subscriber pages of this channel.